It is your Blue Room post-match reaction to Fulham 1, Everton 3. My name is Warren, and joining me, I've got Dave and I've got Les. And it's another win, another away win for David Moyes down in London at a ground that we've never really done well in the past. But after a quite poor first half performance, Everton came out racing in the second half and scored 3 decent goals to give us another away win and another win on the road, leading us into that emotional final game at Southampton. Come to you first, Les. I think I need to ask about the starting 11 because that came out, and I think it gave everyone nightmares, didn't it? I think it gave everyone a sort of a look of this is what we've had for the last 5 years, and it was a last sort of hurrah, if you like, wasn't it, to the quality of our players in that starting 11. The big shocks came with Michael Keane obviously starting. No Jake O'Brien featured in the squad, and players such as Illiman and Jai and Dwight McNeil and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who played a few minutes last week, were left on the bench. And yet it was a much maligned starting 11. So what was your reaction initially when you did see that?
I just laughed, to be honest, when I saw that back four. It feels like one of those things like where years ago, before we sort of like deteriorated into the mess that we've sort of become in the last few seasons, it was one of those lineups where you say, yeah, the manager's sending a message to the board there. He's saying, look, I've got no players here. This is what I've got to put up with. But we just genuinely are that sort of like paper thin, the squad, isn't it? You know, you've got players in. Michael Keane, I don't think he'll be at the club next season. Although I am tipping more to the sort of, maybe, do you know what, maybe keep him on.
Don't say it. You're going to have everyone emailing us and tweeting us.
We'll come on to that later.
Who said it? I said sign him up.
We both did, didn't we? But we'll pick that back up a bit later. But yeah, it was one of those where you think, you know, going to Fulham, they're chasing Europe. I think that pretty much ends their European hopes now, I think. So, you know, it was a big game for them. Again, like, you know, so many games in this running didn't really mean much to us. And you look at that lineup and you think, yeah, we're not getting much out of this. Obviously, Jack Harrison starts again. And you think, well, yeah, it's not going to be any different. And I don't think the first half was, to be honest. I think obviously Mikalenko getting that goal back late on was crucial. But yeah, you know, it probably went as most people would have expected the first half. Not much happened, go a goal down, got the equaliser, which was unexpected. But then the second half, and again, we'll come on to this later, the substitutes worked really well. So the way he didn't last week, it felt a bit like Moyes maybe kept his better side for the later stages of the game. Because I think last week he sort of put out his best side, didn't he? And then brought subs on, and it didn't quite work. And Ipswich eventually got into it, got back into the games for the draw. So I think maybe this week he sort of flipped it on its head and thought, you know what? I'll start off like relatively sort of a weakened side. Obviously, the defence, he had his hands tied. If Jake O'Brien wasn't in the squad, he probably wasn't fit. I haven't heard anything about it. But it feels like he went into the game a little bit weak and think I could bring the subs on to make a difference, and he did. But yeah, again, you know, it was a great win, and I'm absolutely buzzing here. It's a sunny day. I can't even imagine how good that away day must have been, because Fulham is one of the best anyway. It's May, it's sunny, and you know we've won. It must have been incredible. But I just think Moyes has probably looked at that and flipped it on its head. And yeah, you know, it was an odd starting lineup, but probably one he had to go with. But it's all worked out nicely, hasn't it?
I was with you with the emotions of just laughing, because I knew what the reaction would be online, and it just had a look, and it was just funny. Funny, I used the word funny in a sort of sarcastic way, because it was obviously everyone reacted negatively to it, Dave. And you know, Ashley Young came into the side as well. I think probably that's it for Patterson now, isn't it? I think he's had his couple of chances, and I think this is successive managers now that just don't fancy him. And I've gone on record as saying, you know, I'm a fan of his, but I think even I'm at the opinion now where that's probably it for his Everton career. But the first half was very flat, and I did watch it. And Les, you might remember this song. Dave, you might even remember it as well. There was a song in the late 90s, a dance song by a dance group called York, and it was called On the Beach. And I put a picture up in our group of the single cover On the Beach, because for me, it felt like Everton were very much on the holidays.
On the Beach song?
It's called
On the Beach song. So what just on that, I think that's actually a sample of a Chris Rea song from the 80s called On the Beach.
Okay.
So I go back further, mate. I'm like,
see, I'm too young to remember that, but I should know.
There you go.
I should know Chris Rea. I mean, come on, everyone knows who Chris Rea is. But yeah, I did put that sample or that song up there because it felt like very much Everton were ready to fly off to Ibiza or Dubai or wherever they were. And I think that first half reflected it, Dave. And thank God we come out second half and put in some sort of performance, because I think it would have left everyone quite angry going into their final home game if we'd have had, gone in there on a bit of a dampener. But as Les said, the substitutions did work. And I think one player in particular, though, who wasn't substituted and played most of the game, and there has been question marks around him, but I thought he was brilliant today, was Charlie Alcaraz. I think for me now, he has to be a signing we have to make. He had a real impact on the game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. We were hinting at it just before we started recording. With him, he sort of seems like the lad who doesn't give up, the lad who seems to be always there when you need a little bit of a spark in a game. Somebody I'd put towards Ndai since we've had him, but also we've got two of those now, and I think I think it's quite the privilege to have these players who are able to do that when the games are pretty poor. For instance, I would say in a game like that, when it was a classic end of season stinker for us, you've still got somebody who's able to step things up, and he was very much that today. I think when he gets the ball, his instant thought is turn and go forward, and you can probably count on less than one hand how many of those type of players Everton have had in recent seasons and in recent years, because normally it's a square pass or it's looking backwards, knocking it back to Pickford. With him, it's turn, it's attack, it's look at his options, pass it, and keep moving forward. It's simplicity as much as we're saying here, but it's something that Everton have lacked for so many times, and you see the way he played today. I completely agree with you. I thought that if there's one where, and we've spoken about it, well, most weeks, the narrative continues to be, do you think Moyes really fancies him or not? That was really a big tick and a good few boxes towards Moyes, I thought, today.
He had a good game, didn't he, Les?
If I can just jump in on Alcaraz. Yeah, I mean, we've been saying all along, at like 15 million euros or whatever, it's a no-brainer, because the quality of play you can get for that, I think he exceeds sort of that expectation. Yeah. But just him personally, we're like his fifth club in 5 years now. He's never really settled anywhere. So he started at Racing Club, Southampton, Juventus on loan, Flamengo, and then come to us on loan. So it feels like at this stage in his career, he's 22, he's going to be looking for a move where he can settle down and a club that he can settle at. And I think we've seen with players in the past we've had on loan, we are the perfect club for that type of player. We had it probably with Arteta, we had it with Pienaar. If you've got a player who's clearly a good player, but has maybe been a bit unsettled in the career, not quite settled at the club they've moved to, I think that stands us in good stead for we could get a few and maybe some of his best years out of him, hopefully, because like I said, I think he's a no-brainer to sign him. Like you said, Warren, on today's performance, he just wants to make stuff happen, doesn't he?
Well, do you know, just on top of that, sorry lads, I was just going to say, just on top of that, if he doesn't end up with a contract at Everton, it won't be through him. And I think that he's sort of, I'm confident enough to say that about him. If Everton decide not to keep him, it won't be because he doesn't want to stay. Because I think it's pretty obvious, his body language, the way in which he seems to sort of immerse himself with the club as well. I think a lot that's in and around him there. He wants a home. I remember talking to Tim Vickery about this. He said he can be an electrifying footballer, but just hasn't ever really found a proper home. He's been to these places. Juventus don't sign him as a mug, even though it didn't work out for him. Southampton adored him when he was there, and the South American sides that he's been at as well. There's been various issues why he hasn't stayed on where he was, and he's fallen upon Everton's lap for one reason or another. And it's something like that we need to embrace with this. And I've firmly made my mind up. There's been a couple of times when I've thought he's been anonymous, but then I can take that on board when you're in a type of position he's in. There's times when he'll just float through a game where he doesn't get the ball enough. He doesn't get the ball in a position where he can affect it. Everton are the side that happens to, unfortunately, given the situation we've been in. And I think he's done more than enough now to turn that round and be a crucial part of our starting 11. And I think we mentioned as well earlier this week about the system Moyes has started looking at a little bit more, just playing the three of them. If we obviously didn't start with McNeil today, but McNeil and Ndai as well, plus him, there's options to move around there. Stuff that we've lacked for a long time. So I do think it's a no-brainer now. just hope Moyes has seen that today and thought, yeah, do you know what? If that's the road we're going to go down, and I weren't too sure, then yeah, we're going to go and get him. And I think Les's point there on the price, given today's climate, that's an absolute steal, isn't it? Really.
100%. While you were talking there, I was thinking, about is where he's had his best games for Everton this season, and I think it's no coincidence if you think of the games at Palace, the game at Forest, and today, all the away games, he's performed really well in all the away games, and where we've struggled down the years is having that little bit of quality when we've needed to, hit the counter attack, because we set up a little bit differently away from home, and we tend to let other teams have possession. I think he's just give us that little bit of something further forward, and he's come up with another assist today, and he got an assist obviously against Ipswich, and the man Les he got an assist for today in Beto. I know the keeper should do a lot better, but me and Dave were talking on the weekly this week about how there was interest muted from Leeds United around him, and they're looking to sign him, and I think me and Dave come to the logical sort of explanation that we felt that whilst he, has done well in the purple patch he had when Moyes first come in, he does have his deficiencies. And there was an argument about, if Calvert-Lewin does sign his new contract, is it worth keeping hold of Beto? Is it worth selling him on? Is it worth getting some money in for him? And then I look at him today, Les, and I think he was a handful all game today. He gave Fulham a real problem, and he had to do a lot of dirty work as well, because he wasn't getting much of the ball at times. You had to really scrap and fight and win the ball back at times. And look, I know the keepers had a shocker, and I think Leno's been one of the better performing keepers in the league this season. But even still, he's peeled off the defender going forward. Alcaraz finds him with that pass, and he hits it first time. He hasn't had a lot of time to think about it. It spares underneath the keeper, and it goes into the corner. But on the evidence of today, it's another question mark. It's another debate to have about him, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It's a mad one with the keeper, isn't it? Because you think the keeper's had a shock because it has squirmed under him, but he's not expected him to hit it first time. Now, if he takes a touch on that and takes it into the box, it potentially makes it harder for himself there, because the keeper's set and he's ready, and he can force him to sort of go one way or the other. I mean, don't get me wrong, he scored some really good one-on-ones, so he's capable of doing that. But I think just having the nous to hit that first time and see what happens, it's not something many of our players have got, is it? And I think he is one of those players who he's at his best when he plays on instinct. You give him time to think about stuff, and it can get tangled up in his feet. He's not the most graceful player, but when he plays on instinct, you can't really argue with his goal scoring record this season. And it feels like if we sold him and kept Calvert-Lewin, that's kind of the easy option financially for Everton, because we'd obviously get money in for Beto. We'd have Calvert-Lewin for nothing, essentially, just as wages. But you've got to look at it from a football perspective. Is that the right thing to do? Because towards the end of the game, Calvert-Lewin had a one-on-one. It was tight. But again, he didn't score it. The keeper got in the way. The keeper made the save. And, we've seen Beto score from those tight angles as well. So I don't think the club should really just look at it from a financial perspective and just get rid of him, because financially that's probably the wise thing to do, because we'll get money in for him. We'll get nothing for Calvert-Lewin. You've got to look at the impact on the team. And I don't know, Calvert-Lewin just hasn't done it, has he? He's averaged 5 goals a season. I think, we had that one purple patch when Ancelotti was playing, which a lot of people bring up. But, don't forget, that was in front of, no fans in the ground. And that does make a big difference. It clearly made a big difference because the Reds won the league. But anyway, it's just like, it just feels like we need to be a little bit more thoughtful about this. And just, is it the best thing for the squad? Or is it just the best thing financially? Because you can't really argue with his goal scoring, record this season. I think we do need someone else in. I don't think he should necessarily be first choice, but as an option, I think he's better than Calvert-Lewin.
I thought it was a very effective performance, Dave, today. And I just want to go back to the chat me and yourself had on Thursday on the weekly. And I wouldn't say we were critical of Beto. We both praised them, but we were both saying that perhaps Everton need to go in a different direction, like Les has just referred to there, with maybe someone else of a bit more quality, and certainly have him as an option. But again, I just thought his performance was really decent today. And at the risk of sounding sort of going back on what we were talking about on the last show, I mean, it kind of feels like a no-brainer that we've got to really consider him now. And I know we maybe didn't say this on Thursday, but I think off the back of that performance today, it's got to be a consideration, especially in these games away from home where he does cause an issue for these centre-backs.
I'm more than happy to contradict myself when it's in a positive form, and absolutely today's a perfect example of that. I think when you've seen somebody who he gives, I mean, look, it's an easy thing to say these days, but perhaps it's not something you see all the time. Is that he gives everything that he's got. That lad, he comes off, and I think he basically has to crawl home, because he'll be knackered for what he gives for that side when he's on there. Look, we can go through the obvious that we've spoken about him so many times about his quality and what he has and what he hasn't got, and I think it's a little bit of a disservice now. I think he's slightly better than being able to say he's just a nuisance. Because that is all that we'd ever used to say about him, is that, oh, he'll throw himself about, he's a big fella. All of those stereotypes you typically, you end up throwing towards a 6'5" lad who's on the pitch there, who's a football's never touched his boots and all that sort of thing. I feel as if there is a place there for him when he's utilised well, and I think stuff that we haven't dealt with too much on the surface of things. Is that okay? We can sit here and talk about him and heavily criticise him when he's not scoring good chances that he's been given. Alcaraz comes into that, like you said there, in terms of providing him an assist or two, but also everybody around him playing to his strengths. I don't think we've spoken about that in my memory when we've spoken about him at length. People who are able to push themselves in the direction of his game and the way you want him to start playing. And I feel as if that's been neglected quite a bit. Not so much under Moyes, obviously, because we've seen the goals start to come in. Been that good sort of purple patch that he had there with Derby and Palace and all those sort of games where he had that run of form when he scored goals. You look at them, and we've sort of wry smile and a bit of a laugh about this, but the goals that he scored all felt like the same finish. They all felt like the same goal. Now, whilst that's all he can do, if that's all he can do is score a goal like that, then I'm happy for him to do it every week. But the point being, he's had to be set up in those chances, hasn't he? You think about when it was put through to him when he scored that goal from the free kick against Liverpool. You think of that lovely finish he knocks in when Alcaraz puts it through to him against Palace. Today, similar, another goalkeeper howler. The one where I still have kittens over is Brentford. When he should have scored 2 at Brentford, that absolutely did my head in for so long with the lad. But those numbers don't lie, do they? And he's scored goals. He's done them with relatively the same chance. But having said that, the thing that I'd like to add to the mix there, little bit of a mess into the pot, is would you see Calvert-Lewin finishing those chances that he got? I'm not so sure.
That's the debate, really, isn't it? And that's probably what David Moyes has got to weigh up over the summer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens regarding Beto and if that interest is concrete from Leeds and what Everton decide to do with it. Fulham took the lead, Les, with Raul Jimenez, and I thought maybe Michalenko might have done better, but then Michalenko redeems himself with a very lucky deflected shot right at the end of the half. Comes at a good time for Everton after a flat performance, and then going into that second half, another player who's much maligned pops up with a Charlie Adams special free kick set piece routine, where Dwight McNeil curls in a fantastic corner, and Michael Keane, of all people, best finisher at the club, comes at the back post and heads it in. And do you know what? Look, I know there's a lot being said on Michael Keane, and I think we're probably all in agreement that he probably shouldn't stay at the club. He should move on, and it's, shake his hand and wish him all the best. But he's popped up again, and I'm absolutely made up for him because he got a fair bit of stick, and rightly so, after the City game when he come on and he made a few errors and he cost us probably a little bit of stability at the back, and it made everyone feel a little bit nervous. But I thought he did okay again today. He's popped up with that goal, great header at the back post, and do you know, all that I can say is fair enough to him, fair play to him to come out. He's not gone hiding, as in he's always done that throughout his Everton career. He's never hid. He's stood up, and he's whether he's played well or not, he's always tried to account for himself. And it got us in the lead, didn't it? That second goal. So as I said, fair play to him.
Yeah, I've never known a player who can cause as much hassle in both penalty areas as he does. It's incredible. And I thought today for that goal, it was a really, really good goal. We're just talking about Beto there, talking about Calvert-Lewin and our strikers. If our strikers had the nous and the movement that he's got in the box to get into those goal-scoring positions, we wouldn't have anything to worry about, because it's not a coincidence that he scores these goals. He gets himself into these positions. That header today, he lost his man. He timed his run, lost his man, unmarked at the back post. Fulham are no mugs in defence. And he did really well to work the space for himself to score that goal. Also took out Leno as well in the process, which was quite nice.
The problem with that, though, is the problem you just mentioned there is the direct opposite. He loses his man when he's in our box as well.
Well, exactly, yeah. He does the same in our box, doesn't he? And he's just... do you know what? He does get stick, Warren, like you said, and, rightly so, because he does make some howlers, but he's just hapless, isn't he? He's probably the most honest player you're ever going to come across. Like you said, he never hides. He's taken some stick. He's had some weird goings on in his Everton career. You think about the fractured skull at Bournemouth, the big boot after his foot injury. He's been through a lot at Everton. And, I don't think anyone can wish him anything but well, whatever comes next. And it was lovely to see him score, and it was a cracking goal. It was really good movement. Just on Fulham as well, by the way, while we're talking about the fact that we got back into it just the half. I heard on the commentary before, that's 28 points they've dropped from winning positions this season.
Yeah, staggering, isn't it?
Points. That is staggering. Yeah. That's Champions League positions for them. That's
exactly. And you think at the home form, I mean, they've beaten Liverpool at home, and they've gone to some really good teams. I mean, even the corresponding fixture at home, I think they battered us for 90 minutes until again Beto popped up with an equalising goal. And they probably should be higher in the table than where they are. I think, we always go to that old adage and that cliche, don't we? The league table never lies. But I think with them, there's a degree of that, because that's unbelievable. And, if we were Fulham fans and we were reading that we dropped 28 points from winning positions, that's something that needs to change. And maybe that's a little bit down to the manager they've got. He's got a little bit of that in him, even though he does produce some very good, good football on the eye teams in that respect. Just before then we finish off, a couple of more players, Dave, I'd like to just mention who I thought was solid enough today. Obviously, the midfield, Garner. I've been a bit of a critic of James Garner in the past. I've wanted him to take the game by the scruff of the neck a bit more. I think in the last two games, he's done that. And I thought today, without doing anything spectacular, I thought the pair of them were very effective and allowed Everton to do what they do in the forward positions. So I thought they were very good. I thought Branthwaite again was decent. And then, Pickford pulls out his annual save of Fulham, where he got caught a little bit, didn't he, when he was rushing out to get the ball. He was off his line, but he's done brilliantly to reach up and get that. And I thought he'd actually strained something in his side muscle or something then when he reached for it, the way he went down. But it just shows you the when we have players like Beto and like Alcaraz, who've probably been 8 out of 10s today, you need people around them who are going to be solid. And I thought the players I've mentioned there did a good enough job to allow us to get the 3-1 victory today.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good team performance there, midfield wise. Felt like it was quite calm as well to me. There wasn't anything sort of rushed. We weren't really too fussy on the ball, looking for the consistency in regards to passing it. We spoke a Beto there. I think Marco Silva's side's done the homework with Beto there, because they do drop quite deep. Where Beto, one of the things that is not noticed too much, certainly by people who don't watch us, would be that he's quick. And normally that would allow sides to sort of bring forward their centre-backs by 10, 15 yards there towards the middle of the pitch. And I feel our midfielders there, were included with him, were able to push them back. James Garner, he'll continue to be a bit of an enigma for most fans, I think. Today was one of his more positives, I think, in my opinion. They've got Fulham. I'm a big fan of Fulham. I think Fulham have got some really good players, some really good midfield players. Smith Rowe they got as well. I wish we'd have gone and got him at the time when he left Arsenal. Even though he's slight, he's skill wise, and the way in which he plays is something that is we've missed for a long time, and we feel that it's able to do so. He's got an engine on him as well, and I think we managed them quite well. And it felt like settled to me. And it's after the Lord Mayor's show, you get to a stage of a season where you're thinking, why wasn't he doing that 15, 20 games ago? Where was that when Moyes first came in? And I'm not just talking about James Garner. I think it probably doesn't do him a good service if you were to say that it's him alone that has had those sort of ups and downs, because that's exactly where we are for that reason, isn't he? He's part of that. But I feel when you've got the I keep on calling them the two Garners together, I think there's a real partnership there between them that's developed quite well. And you've seen that today as well. I think that's a good foundation to go with going into next season. I'd be staggered if Ejisagana Gay is no longer an Everton player in August. I say I'd be staggered. I'd be devastated. I'd go as far as saying I don't care how old he is. It's just a number with a player like that, you know. I mean, as much as we bang on about how old Ashley Young is and how old James Coleman is, you've got a lad there who's approaching their age. Well, a few years younger than them, and yet he does not look like he's lacking anything in his game. If anything, he looks better to me. This is the best he's ever been for us. Even when he was here the first time, pre-PSG, post-PSG. Now he's in, might well be the golden years of his career, probably will be. No one's going to carry on until like 40, they're not like Ronaldo or Messi. But that lad there in the middle, he glues everything together, along with the lad next to him. So I'd be more than happy if we get to August and they're the two starting centre midfielders for us.
Yeah, I think just on James Garner there, this is basically the biggest, I think the biggest run he's had in the side, hasn't it? Because, don't forget, start of the season we had Mangala with Garner. Again, Mangala, he's a very different player to James Garner, but looked good next to Garner because he was probably more solid, maybe a little bit less adventurous with the ball, but it was just a nice, solid midfield too. So, hopefully, because he does sort of split opinion, James Garner, doesn't he? Because people look at him and think, what does he actually do? I think my biggest criticism has been he's not great in the tackle sometimes. He can pull out the tackles and he's maybe not strong, but I think, like you said, Warren, last few games he's looked pretty solid in that position. He's done kind of everything right and what you want to see from a midfielder. So I'm hoping that given this run of games, that can build up that partnership and, we can build on that next season. But I do think we definitely need reinforcements in that position as well. Because like you say, Dave, Garner's not going to last forever. Garner Gay, not going to last forever. Probably need to be looking for a replacement for him. I don't think Tim Irabunum's that player, but I think he did well when he came on again today.
You know what, I was going to ask you about that in a minute, because I thought that he threw his body into a lot of stuff. Fulham got themselves a couple of times into quite key positions out wide at the edge of the box. And there was a point in the game where, and I think the commentator even mentioned this, he said something along the lines of, look at the hunger of the Everton players wanting to win that ball back and stop the ball going in. And there was a mini break. We weren't under any massive threat, but Fulham were starting to attack the box, and Irabunum was just there every time. Yeah. And he seems to be, doesn't he, Les, person who, at the moment at this stage in his career, is good at putting a cameo in and good at coming on later in games, but maybe not starting yet.
Yeah, I think it's, it's one to look out for in the summer, isn't it? Obviously Harrison Armstrong's gone to Derby, had an amazing loan spell at Derby. Obviously, he's only 18, 19, so he might go on loan again next season. But if he's done that at Derby in the back end of this season, he could be one to look out for next season. Irabunum the same, I think. He came in from Villa in a bit of a PSR ruse, it seemed. But I think we've definitely done better out of that, because he does look like, he's going to have what it takes to be a Premier League player in some capacity. Like you say, he might not be a 90-minute player, but a squad player at the very least, hopefully more. So yeah, hopefully in the summer there are going to be options there where we can look at players we've already got. Are they ready? Maybe not. Maybe sign someone else, put someone else on loan. But yeah, it does look quite good. The midfield at the minute. Again, every position, to be honest, is up for grabs in the summer, isn't it? I'd say apart from goalkeeper, I think every other position is probably up for grabs. But yeah, it's nice to feel this. We've maybe got some momentum going into the summer, because if we went on a run, like obviously Spurs have got the UEFA Cup, so that kind of drags them out a little bit. But if let's look at West Ham in a similar position. If you're like on a downer going into the end of the season, I know we've drawn a lot of games, performances and results like that pick you up. It's nice to go into the summer with a little bit of momentum. So I'm hoping, these players can, get some togetherness in the summer and, a platform to build on for next season.
I think what you're trying to say there, Les, is the exciting exhilarating and enthralling battle for 13th place is well and truly on, and Everton lead the pack for that at the minute. So, with performances like that, that's what it's all about. Dave, I know you're a big fan of possession stats. Fulham had 63%, or nearly 64% possession today. Everton had 36%. However, the one that I am looking at here about the shots, we had 11 shots, 7 of them on target, one more than Fulham, who only had 6, and they had 18 shots. Again, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because I'd love to see an Everton team who dominate more and have more of the ball and control games more. But you look at them stats there, and the threat, certainly in the second half, was always Everton. And I think we mentioned it early on. I think the theme of this post-match has been the substitutes. And I think we've said about Irabunum coming on there. We said about Njai coming on. And I know maybe he's not quite 100% at the moment, but he looked okay when he come on. I thought Dwight McNeil made a difference when he come on, just added that little bit of quality again, always looking for that forward pass. But Dave, in a week that's going to be highly charged and highly emotional, Seamus Coleman comes on for a little cameo at the end, and fans singing his name. And in the build up to Southampton, we are at the start now of probably the most emotional week, aren't we? It was nice to see him come on, wasn't it? Albeit for those 3 or 4 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the perfect scenario to put him on, because I'll probably lead the line and kicking off saying, why have you put a player on there just to say goodbye to him and just, well, you've still got a game and you've still got 3 points to play for. Thankfully, we were 3-1 up, and you can bring someone on 90 minutes, and then, you've got the best afternoon there with the sun shining like this and everyone cheering for him at the away end. Just interesting point, though, just on the possession that you said there. I mean, yeah, everyone wants us to have more of the ball in the opposition. It's no secret for any fan of any team, is it? But I tell you what, I'd happily give them as much as they wanted if Everton go on and play them, which they do when they have the ball. Yeah, it's more. I mean, it's more highly important when you haven't get a chance. You've got to take them, because they're not going to get as many as the opposition. That's pretty obvious. But we meant going back to our Alcaraz there, we're starting to get players in bits and pieces of this squad that's able to not be too asked about the possession. We can absorb it and go forward. And you've got players there who can really set up goals and set up chances. I'd be much more preferred to see Everton like that than one that is like a Man City, for instance. We've spoken about that a lot, haven't we? How it sort of was nearly bored us all to tears, didn't it, when Man City was playing as a Goodison? And it was just so repetitive. It was hard for fans to like, hard for fans to watch. And if it was ours, we'd be exactly the same, Premier League titles withstanding. But it feels to me that you're starting to find a little bit of a blueprint here for Moyes to take us forward. And yeah, you've seen when Coleman comes on there, you've seen somebody. I mean, I don't expect him to leave the club in a different capacity other than retire. Similar to a Baines capacity, maybe. And I'd like to see that again. That's completely against the grain that I'm normally talking about. But Seamus Coleman is a big part of Everton Football Club, whether he's playing or whether he's not. I think that's pretty obvious. And the subs you talk about there, I mean, there's looking at the 5 that we made, and Dye and McNeil both come on at the same time, just after 60. And then Boonham, Calvert-Lewin and Coleman come on after 80 minutes. Interesting that going back to me Sean Dyche criticism days of his substitutions, not what he doesn't make anything before 75. Moyes is doing that. He's making those alternations into the side. There's trust in players that he brings on here, and it's something else I think that I've noticed a lot with Moyes being able to sort of say, listen, lads, get changed, get on the pitch, as opposed to the days when Dyche is there. You were looking at it, and he's probably looking at it thinking, I've got to take a chance here at some point, rather than have the faith in the players that they put onto the side. And even Seamus Coleman coming on after 90, Seamus Coleman will still give you the game. He'll still give you the game if you put him on. You've got to start him, he'll give you the game. If Pat, well, he gets in ahead of Patterson didn't come on, and Seamus Coleman does. Now, whether it's to say goodbye to fans, well, it's not really, is it? Because we've got the game at Goodison coming up. Yeah. So he's put him on ahead of Patterson there, and there's a reason for that. And it's not just because it's Seamus Coleman who's saying goodbye and he's an Everton legend. He's one of the very, very few that's been in our generation, if you like. He gets in that side on merit for the last few minutes, and then it's a little bit pedantic what we're talking about here, but I'm all for seeing that. And then, you like Calvert-Lewin, it's an interesting interesting dynamic there, isn't it? That you're putting on Seamus Coleman, who are happy to get game time because this will be the end of his career, you think. And then you've got Calvert-Lewin, who his future's still up in the air, whether he leaves or whether he stays. Both come on at the same time. And me and Les, just before we started the post-match there, we're talking about the chance he had. And I've come to the conclusion it's just not working. It is just not working for Calvert-Lewin. I think he'll end up staying. I have to say, I think he'll end up staying, but I don't think it's any good for Everton or him.
It's an interesting one to debate, and we talked about it loads, and we'll continue until we find out one way or another what happens to him. Nearly forgot as well to mention to both of you, how nice was it to see a referee go to the screen and stick with his decision?
Said it just before we started, Les, didn't I?
Yeah, it was.
I can't believe. The only other time that's happened, to my knowledge and dodgy memory, is when we were still given the penalty during COVID at Anfield, when it was it Kavanagh, was it? Who was told to go to run. Was it? Yeah. It was him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was given in the ends, wasn't it? I know what you mean, to check it. But I think for me,
the little prefect looking bellend, he went and gave it, didn't he? And I was staggered there. I remember Carragher going on in the commentary. Yeah. What's Alexander Arnold meant to do? Get out the way and all this, and then we got the penalty. Yeah. But he went against the grain of what VAR were telling them to do. Today was that.
Do you know what?
And I could not believe it. I could not believe that.
I thought it was really strong refereeing. We don't give much credit to the referees on this show, and nor should they get it, because I think the refereeing standard in this country's been well below for a long, long time. But the main thing for me out of all of it is, yes, well done the referee, but Les, what on earth is Stockley Park doing? Why are they calling the referee over in the first place? Who is sitting in that booth and going, you need to go and look at that, when the referee himself has gone over and gone, actually, no, what's he supposed to do? He's defending. How can he get his arm out the way?
This is the thing, isn't it, where there are times when people on the VAR should just look at it and go, do you know what? The referees give the decision. Let's just stick with that. Because, it was about, 3 feet away from Mykolenko. I know his arm moved down, but had his arm stayed there, maybe give it, even though it was so close. But his arm moved down to there, which is probably the more natural position. I don't know. It's
the motion he's running in as well. He can't run without your arm moving.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think it was good to see, because when you could see the referee looking at the video, and he was you could see his face. He was it looked like he was thinking, I don't even know why they've asked me to look at this again.
He was looking, going, why have you brought me over here? Why have you made me run 60 yards?
It was like he was having an argument on the phone. You look at his face and all that, and I tell you something about this, which I think it sticks out another thing that we don't see so often, because again, it's something that's very, very rarely happens. Like I've been there, it was 5 years ago the last time I seen this happening in our game with that derby. But when you've got a referee there who goes against a lot of the lads who is just colleagues sitting off in Stoke or whatever it is, saying, go and look at it because we're saying it's a pen. That's what they're basically saying, isn't it? Let's be honest. Nobody is saying, oh, listen, it's your decision. When they're saying go and look at it, there's a reason to tell them to go and look at it, and that's for them to say, we think it is. We just need you to say, yeah, mate. And when he happens, I'd love to know right now, when they get on Zoom or whatever it is after the game, when they do a review of the game, I'd love to be a fly on the wall there, seeing what that conversation's like, because you get those lads there thinking, hang on, you've just done us out to dry there. Why did you not agree with us and just give the pen? Particularly, Les, when we were 3-1 up, it didn't matter because the final whistle was happening 30 seconds later, and he still put his bollocks on the line. I'm happy with that. Let's get him back.
Do you know what? It is good that referees should back themselves more in that situation, whereby they've seen it on field and just think, you know what, this is I saw it like this. That's not changing my mind. I'm happy with my decision. Because
boss, if he didn't go over, it'd be boss if he just decided, listen, I'm not going over. Leave me alone.
I'm not looking at you.
Take it off. Get away from me.
Every time they go to a monitor and contradict their own decision, they're they're sort of making their role in the game less. They are it's a cliche, but the referee is the most important man on the pitch, really, because he makes all the decisions. He makes and breaks a game. So they should back themselves more. And yeah, it was good to see that because it was a ridiculous VAR call. And just quickly on that before we finish, they were desperate to like chalk our goal off, weren't they? Like Michael Keane's.
Michael
It was
Keane's
like,
goal.
I tell you what, let's see if there was an offside. Okay, no offside.
Let's see if
Maybe
there was a foul.
on the keeper. Let's have a look at that. No foul on the keeper. And that's what needs to stop. It's like, by all means, review things, but if it's not an obvious thing that the referee's missed or the linesman, like he's 5 yards offside or someone's been booted up in the air and the ref's not seen it, if it's not an obvious thing, just go with the on-field decision. And it just drives me nuts because they are determined to chalk off goals, and that's not what it's about.
Well, the thing you say there, the thing you mentioned, sorry, Warren, I was just going to say, I think a few people started referring to other sports that use it. You'll be more than well versed in it than most others. Well, and with the American sports that you like when you get them on the mic and all that sort of thing, explaining why things happen to the fans and all that. What was they doing in the FA Cup? Is it this year? They've done it in the FA Cup.
They've tested it in something, haven't they? I can't remember what off the top of my head.
It's so shit though, isn't it? It's like when they put the tweets up from the PGMOL. It's like so the ref didn't give that because there was a foul. That's a nice one.
But like the American sports though, wasn't I think like sponsored by Gatorade? Here's the referee. Or something like
that's the way it's going, isn't it? That's the way it's going. Yeah.
That's the thing with the cricket was the thing that I immediately sort of think of when they had the DRS with that. It is DRS, isn't it? The referral thing you can do. You get 2 of them, and it gives you a certain amount of time before you can do it. I just feel like that. The longer it takes, the more woeful you're making yourself look. And I can't for the life of me. And I'd like to think that happens in the aftermath of today. What happened with that referee sticking to his own decision is saying to him, well, look, if I'm going there and looking for it and I'm sitting waiting for something to happen that you've told me is there, then the longer we look, the longer this happens, the worse we look, the more incompetent we look. And that was exactly what happens when they're trying to get an offside decision or they're trying to get a foul on the goalkeeper and doing anything by all means to get Everton not scoring that goal. Look, it does me head in when people start saying, oh, it's Everton, it's against this side, it's against that side. It's not. It's incompetence by the people that run it.
And the thing is as well, the referee, he's the fella with his balls on the line because he's the fella in the middle of that pitch, in the middle of that stadium, who pretty much everyone in the ground hates. And he's the one who's getting the shit. These gonks in Stockley Park, they're just sat behind the video, like rewinding, fast forwarding, looking at things, different angles. It's like they need to support the refs more than contradict them. So instead of saying, I think you need to have a look at that, maybe just say, yeah, do you know what? Maybe, but I think you got the right decision. And back the referees, don't contradict them all the time.
Hang on a minute, right? Us three actually saying we like referees. Referees are all sound. Is that what we're saying here?
No, we're saying on a one-off today that a referee has done the right thing and stood up for himself, which we want to see more of. And if we did see more of it, we'd probably have more respect for them.
And I was on the back foot with him because he looked like George Osborne. So as soon as I saw him, I was on the back foot thinking, I do not like this fella. But thank God, he surprised us all.
Thank God for him that he didn't overturn his original decision. And then
what's his name? Did anyone get his name?
I'm just looking for it. Then
should we just call him Phil? Should we just give him a name?
Yeah, Phil, the referee. There we go. We'll call it that. I've just had a quick look to try and find his name online, but I can't do it. But anyway, there we go. We will leave it there for your post-match reaction. We are building up on the Blue Room to probably the most emotional week, I reckon, in Everton's history. The final game at Southampton at Goodison, at Goodison Park against Southampton next Sunday. We wouldn't get emotional going to Southampton.
Southampton, I'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah. So we will be building up and we will be having lots of shows dedicated to that. The lads who are with me tonight, Dave and Les, they'll be back with Roger tomorrow for on Monday, with Blue Monday, talking about the game, obviously, and leading up to Southampton as well. The lads, Matt and Paddy, will be back with the byline. And then I'll be joined by a few of our regulars for a special weekly next week. We're going to do the Goodison Awards. We're going to do loads of different awards about our famous old lady grounds, which... we're all gutted, obviously, about leaving. So we're going to have a bit of a celebration, a bit of a chat, and a bit of a nostalgia trip, should we say. So you'll have that show ready in your podcast for next week. So wherever you get us, whether that be on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts, give us a download and a listen. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like or a subscribe. But that is it for the post-match reaction. It did finish Fulham 1, Everton 3, a magnificent away day at a lovely Craven Cottage for the Toffees today. And we're on the road to finishing 13th. Up the Toffees. We'll speak to you soon.